Welcome to the Danny Clinkscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Insightful and witty commentary, probing interviews, and detours from the beaten path.
Welcome to Arts and Lifestyle Wednesday, presented by Cinematic Visions, and it's the return of Reconcilable Differences with Danny and Jane. We have been away for a while. We know you've missed us, so we're glad to be back and talking about all things couples and life and smiles and frustrations and all kinds of other things to deal with on this particular edition. And we're going to talk about things that my wife knows very well, which is performance and, getting up and being mentally ready for a performance. That's one little issue. She also has great passion for things retail at times and things that make our home better, and something's going on right now with that. She saw, which I have not seen yet, the new documentary about Anthony Bourdain, and we'll weigh in with her little review of that as well. Going to talk about the Olympics in the context of what we talked about before, and also our man Louis Oosthuizen, who has given us lots of joy and plenty of frustration over the past couple of months. And also, we'll wrap it up by telling you about something exciting we've got coming up in our lives, a little driving trip that we're going to have some familiar territory, some unfamiliar territory, and create some smiles. And we'll create some smiles for you on this edition of Reconcilable Differences with Danny and Jane as part of Arts and Lifestyle Wednesday, and that's part of being presented by Cinematic Visions.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
Cinematic Visions has been an affordable solution for professional media production in Kansas City since 2003, offering award-winning video production and creation, as well as a wide array of digital and social media management services. From planning, scripting, filming, editing, and post-production, to delivering your product to a watching world, Cinematic Visions will provide professional and affordable services for you and your business with the necessary return on investment to make it all worthwhile. Cinematic Visions' goal is to unlock the power of storytelling through video and a strong online presence for your company. Beyond the numbers, they want to inspire and evoke your clients to feel and act. Let my friends at Cinematic Visions embed your brand where it belongs, in your customers' minds. You can find them online at cinematicvisions.com or with a quick phone call at 816-600-6300. Time to spend a few minutes with my good friend Jeff Dillon from Dillon's Heating and Cooling. And Jeff, what differentiates your company from others in the industry?
Plain and simple, we're honest. We have integrity, and we're going to do things right the first time. There's way too many companies out there that lie, cheat, hide things from the homeowner or customer, and we're not about that. It's kind of funny sometimes. I actually am so honest with some people, it kind of surprises them. But sometimes it's good for business, sometimes it's bad for business. But ultimately, it's the kind of business that I want to run, is an honest one.
And that family way of treating things is part of your slogan, and it's also part of one of your great features that you offer to customers.
Our slogan is like family. Our most popular maintenance plan is called the Family Plan. It's very similar to a lot of ones out there. The little tweak that we do to ours, 1% off for every 2 years. They have a continued maintenance plan with us. If they have a maintenance plan for 10 years, then we give them 5% off, no questions asked.
You can find out more about Dillon's Heating and Cooling and all their great range of services at dillonsheatingandcooling.com. That's Dillon's with an S. The phone number, 913-214-1343. Let's have a brief conversation with David Schmidt from Pro Millennial. David, what differentiates you from other financial organizations?
I would say the passion we have for seeing our clients succeed is probably paramount to what we do here. There's no joy greater than watching a client accumulate wealth. I had a client that I've had for many years was able to buy his dream warehouse. Nothing too extravagant, but we had a savings plan in place and was able to see him fulfill his dreams.
And what else motivates you in this industry?
Well, lately it's been finding out inconsistencies in the marketplace, ferreting out some more than questionable ideas out there, that what we're seeing with Bitcoin and a few of these other cryptocurrencies right now. I'm in the opinion where if it's untraceable, it really needs to be regulated in a big way right now.
To get more information and advice from David, visit promillennial.com or call 816-221-7775. That's 816-221-7775. We're here once again with Dr. Brad Woodle from Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture. Springtime, good weather's finally here. People want to stay active, and it's your job to make sure that they can stay active, and be healthy.
Danny, we see a lot of not just weekend warriors, but people that every day are having that want to get back to activity. Whether you're starting with walking, jogging, or maybe that first 5K of the year, we want to help you out. We specialize in taking care of all ages, from kids all the way to grandmas and grandpas, but absolutely specialize in getting you back to full function and keeping you in great shape.
So in short, how do we go about doing that?
The first thing is to schedule a consultation with one of our doctors and therapists so we can see how you move and how you're supposed to move. Based on our assessment, we can put together a short treatment plan and a set of goals to help you both feel better, function better, and most importantly, stay better for this year and many years to come.
Learn more at asfca.com/Danny. That's asfca.com/Danny. If you'd like to
Welcome
join
back,
these
and
other
it's
great
time
sponsors
to
and market your
engage
business
into
to
a
a
growing
couples
and engaged
banter
audience,
and contact
anytime
us
we
at Danny
agree
at
on things,
DannyClinkScale.com.
sometimes we disagree. That's
Look
why it's
forward to hearing from
reconcilable
you.
differences.
That's why we came up with the snappy title, and we are glad to be back and talking about things like that. I have a big smile on my wife's face. She's eagerly anticipating this, apparently. But starting off with something we were just talking about just before we started the podcast, which is the trials and travails of us trying to get ourselves a new refrigerator. And actually, this is your project, really. But you'd really want to include me, engage me in this, but I don't have quite the enthusiasm, let's put it that way, that Jane has. And we have some challenges as far as getting the refrigerator into place because of the structure of our home. But what I've liked the most, however, is the absolute enthusiasm you've had for looking at all these refrigerators and dreaming a little dream of having our old-timey looking white refrigerator tuned in for a spanking new black one. And things like that, I think they're the little excitements in life that people need.
Well, all I can say is a couple of years ago, I don't know if you remember this, but we had this panic because the stove died on us a day or two before Christmas. And so I jumped in and used a very well-known national retailer to get us a fabulous new oven and microwave in that lovely black stainless. And so I've been needing to upgrade. And so there's very good reason. One, visually needs to upgrade, but we also have some issues with our old refrigerator here. So I thought, no brainer, let's just go to that well-known national retailer and see if we can just nip this in the bud. I actually did it just for fun. And then I found one that has this fabulous new drawer that's on the outside, just above the freezer on a French door. Women out there who won't know the French door versions. And so we thought we had it made here, but it turns out we have multiple issues of how to get this darn thing in. Even with the doors off, it's not going to work. So I'm so upset I can't get the exact refrigerator I want.
We'll see how it plays out. It will be part of another edition, no doubt, of Reconcilable Differences, and maybe we'll have... I will say this. On more than one day, I have left the house with the anticipation that I was going to return to a brand spanking new refrigerator, and I was really kind of looking forward to it. And in each of those days, something came a cropper, and it hasn't happened yet, so we still have the old refrigerator.
Well, the worst part of all of this is not to be naming names at all about this national retailer, but I was sold a bill of goods, and they were trying to pawn off the floor model on me, which we found out when it came into our driveway with a ding. And I'm like, that was the beginning of the... So it's not been a pleasant ride thus far, but I'm still hopeful that we will get something we like.
Well, talking about a different and difficult ride, that certainly was the life of Anthony Bourdain, and his new, not his new, but the new documentary about him is called Roadrunner. And Jane went and saw it with her sister the other day, and I did not go, so I haven't seen it yet. But I know that this film had enough impact on you that it created even sort of a sleepless night. I mean, it's a very complicated individual, and obviously committed suicide and, hanging himself, which is, to me, one of the worst ways you can absolutely do it, or it seems the most grisly. I guess there's no good way. But apparently the filmmaker did quite a good job of bringing this particular story to life, but it is a difficult story.
You know, anyone who followed him, my sister and I we were in love with Anthony because he had a way of bringing, you know, a new environment and sometimes very scary parts of the world to life, and to see the humanity behind, whether he was in Hanoi or whether he was in the Congo or the Haiti when he was doing a food segment, and realized all the people standing around probably hadn't eaten for 3 or 4 days, and he tried to finally give them the food that was left over. It turns into chaos. That guy's willing to take chances. And so, you know, not only were you learning about the great food about throughout the world, but he had this wonderful, really rather Hemingway-esque way of delivering his voiceover, which was poignant. And so he knew filmmaking. Somehow he was just a natural at this, and he fell into it. And the sad part is you really learn he has a very intense, addictive personality in the film, and that helped develop this spiral in his life, which I don't think most of us really saw. But in this film, you really see the last couple of years of his life. He was really in trouble, and nobody around him really fully saw it, including his girlfriend, which is really a sad process.
And he had heroin addictions and other things that he went through. When you watch the show, and we watched it together many, many times, you get the idea that certainly he was an out-there personality, and a lot of this had become public at that point in time anyway. And the show would include times when he was staying out all night with people and drinking all night and whatever. So that part of it certainly came through. But what also came through was just one of those people that has it. You know, certain people just have it, and it translates itself to the screen. It made itself a very successful series. And, you know, we also watched that travel series with Rick Steves, for instance, and he's about as far from having it as anybody there is. But
he loves what he does.
It's still an entertaining show in a very different way. But certainly Anthony Bourdain left us too soon, but he certainly had it.
Well, you know, the thing I've said is, you know, to me, he's the closest to Marilyn Monroe that I've ever seen. He has an angst about him that there's an appealing thing about that on screen. And like you said, that was it. And this fell into his lap. Now, writing didn't. He was always a great writer, and somehow he knew that was something that he wanted to do. And he ended up writing books before he ended up starting his first one. And I forgot the name all of a sudden in my brain. Oh my God. I'll think of it in a second. But what's really, really telling is, you know, he wasn't the nicest of people, but he tended to like walk away from people when he couldn't handle something. Instead of, you know, having it out with someone, he would just walk away and shut down. And also wanting to be perfect. And how many shows can you do to perfection? You know, it's like he was going on and on and on. And even his producers, directors that he'd started with finally said, Anthony, are you ready to call this quits? Because we will do what you want to do. But he wouldn't stop. And I think had he gotten off his, he was on some pretty crazy relationships at the time that this all occurred. And they didn't interview his girlfriend at the time for I think some very good reasons, because it shouldn't be about that. I think his issues started early on in his life. So if anybody followed Anthony Bourdain, I think it's really worth watching. My sister and I were the only ones in the theater.
Wow. And
I was shocked because where we were seeing it, I thought we would see at least a few people in the audience. But maybe part of it is it's such a sad, you know, ending story. But what was great is there was so much film on him, just an endless plethora of film on him, and it's worth it.
Well, certainly a more enjoyable entertainment that you are engaging in now is you are now officially can be called a binge watcher, because you've dabbled, I'd say, in a little bit of that before, but it's full on with the Australian soap opera-ish show Offspring. Is that what I believe?
Oh my God, yes.
And I've watched a few of them, and they're very entertaining, and they're very well done, and it can be highly recommended for people of both sexes or whichever gender decision you decide to make in your life, because all the people are gorgeous, but it doesn't come across as candy, and it's funny, and there's a lot of pathos in it. And for whatever reason, we haven't streamed as many of the really good American shows like Ted Lasso, which we're about to get into, which is supposed to have a tremendous amount of humanity and such. But it just seems like, for whatever reason, when we've had these European or Australian shows, they seem to have a little bit more of a slightly relaxed vibe. And I don't know why, but it seems like they're better done.
I know there's more realism in their acting style. I know in England, because the way they train to be more realistic. And there's a lot of discussion to go there. But this is so much fun. It's about this family, the Proudmans, and the two sisters, and their antics into love and offspring. It's about children. The lead is an obstetrician, and it all takes place part of it takes place in a hospital, but it's surrounding this family and all these amazing love interests that they get involved in it. It's just inane in a way, but you're sitting there looking at the most gorgeous people you've ever seen. And my friend Kathy, if you're out there listening, thank you very much, because I've never wanted to binge so much. You care for these characters. There's real human elements to them, about what it's like to be dealing with kids, dealing with love, dealing with your sister and hating her and loving her at the same time. And
you couldn't identify with that, could you?
we all have
Sure.
that issue, those issues
Well, I
with
do
siblings.
too. I have it in my family. So,
but I think it's really worth it, and it's just fascinating psychological test of how much a family can go through. It's worth it.
Right, and hating and loving is a too strong way of putting a sibling rivalry, but in some ways together. But you don't get that kind of. That's what makes a passionate relationship a lot of times, is the fact that you care that much about it. It is a fun show to watch. I'm lucky that this is a passion of yours. I don't have to see every one. I don't have to care about the arc of the show. And I guess the good thing for you, there had already been several seasons of this made, so that you got plenty of content.
Well,
right?
and it's been finished for a while, and I got glommed onto this a little later. And the lead, she's now in the new Nicole Kidman flick that's coming out on Hulu, Asher Ketty. So if anybody's out there, you've got to see her. But my favorite is Patrick, her love interest for many, many years. Matthew de la Neves. Oh my God. So worth the watch, women. So worth the watch.
Offspring is the name of that. That's how we'll wrap up our first segment of Reconcilable Differences with Danny and Jane. It's part of Arts and Lifestyle Wednesday. We've still got a lot to cover on this particular episode. We're glad to be back, and we'll be back in the short term next.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
I'm here with Joe Spiker, owner of Easton Roofing. And Joe, there's all kinds of roofing companies in Kansas City. People see their trucks, they see their ads, they see their commercials on TV. What separates you out from the pack?
Danny, there's a lot of roofers in Kansas City that are good roofers that can put a good roof on, but we like to pride ourselves on giving you a good customer service experience. From the first time you call, you're going to get a friendly voice on the phone. We're going to let you know what's happening and when it's happening. And, the other piece is some companies are small enough to do small jobs. Some companies are big enough to do big jobs. We're right there in the middle. We can handle the little stuff. We can handle your repairs all the way up to your big commercial roofs.
So what's the best way for folks to get in touch with you at Easton Roofing?
You can find us at eastonroofing.com, or you can always call us at 913-257-5426. That's 913-257-5426.
Easton Roofing. Integrity matters. We're here with Michael Barber, the CEO and founder of Microlight Corporation of America, the world leaders in laser therapy. And Michael, tell us a little bit about your product.
Our device is using a particular wavelength and power to reduce pain and swelling. My background is surgical lasers, but I've been involved with this particular device now for about the last 20 years, actually.
And I know that it works because I've had it
There
used
you go.
on me as well. And tell us about the relationship you have with your company and Canaway.
It's what I call a strategic business relationship, in that Canaway, the leader in the field of the cannabinoid systems and CBD oil, but our device used in conjunction with Canaway CBD oil gives a better pain relief outcome for the patient.
And if you want to get that pain relief outcome like I did, you can reach their local representative, Sherry McCants, at 515-208-6312. That's 515-208-6312.
Hey everyone, this is Matt Llewellyn for the 23rd Street Brewery. Thank you so much for supporting local restaurants, especially through this pandemic. And you know what? We're almost through it. At the 23rd Street Brewery, we have brought in a few more tables. You can wear a mask if you want, or not. It's your choice. Other than that, we're open 11:30 every single day. So come see us at the 23rd Street Brewery in Lawrence.
Most of us have experienced auto accidents, and it's no fun. And even less fun is trying to work on the insurance aspects afterwards and getting full value after an auto accident. I'm here with David Cowan from RecExpert.com. And David, you have an unusual and important niche for people after an auto accident.
We have a passion to teach car wreck clients what they deserve. Getting your car repaired only fixes the damage and the paint. Getting paid for your car's loss in value is called diminished value. Chances are you've never heard of this before because most people aren't looking out for you. We help people collect thousands to tens of thousands of dollars for their car's loss in value after the wreck.
And if somebody wants to come to you for that, what's the original assessment cost them?
We offer a free review of any insurance claim to see how we can help.
You can't beat that. Great expertise and assistance in getting full value after an auto accident from David Cowan. Visit RecExpert.com and learn more.
If you'd like to join these and other great sponsors and market your business to a growing and engaged audience, contact us at Danny@DannyKlinkscale.com. Look forward to hearing from you.
We're back, and we're in the midst of the Olympics, and of course it's different. The Olympics is a different thing these days, and one thing we've done recently is watch a couple of really outstanding documentaries of past Olympics and done in beautifully cinematography.
Cinematic?
Cinematography's great. Directing done by famous directors. One was about the Montreal Olympics. One was about the Tokyo Olympics. They basically were foreign films because they were in a different language with subtitles, but it didn't matter. They were fascinating stories, and it sort of juxtaposes with what we have now. The Olympics are a very different thing, but people still do love the stories and the competition. I was watching ping pong over lunch yesterday, and those sports actually are a little more captivating to me in some ways. You know, I like track and field. I like a lot of things about the Olympics, but when you see those sports, that's what the Olympics really kind of used to be, is the fact that people just dedicated their amateur lives to that, and that couldn't go on. It was going to be too rife for cheating and such, and it eventually did get to that. People should be paid for what they do and all that stuff. But anyway, the Olympics are a fascinating thing. But what we've seen around the Olympics and in sports recently is the issues of performance and performance anxiety. And as we tape this, Simone Biles had pulled out of the team event because she says she wasn't mentally ready, or it was a mental issue for her. I've seen the tennis player Osaka, and she has been very public with her struggles, and she just lost in the Olympics. I don't know, she didn't cite that as a particular reason for it. And you're very familiar with being at the highest levels of performance, and I've heard you talk about it very often, that there were times when you were going to go and do a big performance when, no matter how prepared you were, right before you went out there, it was like, is this going to just crash and burn? And
oh, absolutely.
And then you would go out and everything was fine.
Yeah,
and that's
a
very difficult bar to hurdle.
Yeah, and I remember that's a good analogy. That's a good analogy for today.
Thank you.
I remember when I was in England, I was getting ready to perform Ravel's L'Heure Espagnole, the Spanish Hour, and I had to learn it within 3 weeks because I was taking over from somebody else, and I'd pulled it off. And I had it so down. I mean, it was like, I could sing it in my sleep. In fact, I was singing it in my sleep. And then right before the first performance, and this happens to me and still does, and happened to me often then when I was singing more, complete blank before I went on the stage. I had no idea what the first note was going to be. And that's stage fright. But it's just, that momentary fear. And then you walk out and suddenly this, it's like any artist or any athlete, you have learned to, it's a muscle reflex. You go out there and you're ready, and it all came out without a hitch. But it's amazing how your mental capacity, especially when you're in front of a large audience, can really affect you for a few minutes. And I only feel like I remember like the Canadians in the Montreal Olympics. They were showing in this film like a couple of the pentathlon teams, and they were focusing on Hungary, and they really, really went into each one of these guys and how overwhelmingly stressful this was for them, for each one of these different sports that they were having to do. And I loved that, because you don't really get that on the day-to-day when they're showing Olympics generally in the United States. But this was the after effect. It was really fascinating because I could relate to it.
When you watch the Olympics now, and you've watched some over, during the course of our day, it's on all the time. And then we look back. Now, the 1976 film we watched was a little odd, to say the least, because much of it focused on, or there were very big segments which focused on Bruce Jenner, and that seems really bizarre now, obviously. Yes. And to look back on that, and seeing him, know that when we watched that, he was a national hero, and all that particular issues as well. It is just a wistful thing, but you don't feel like the Olympic Games, I think, of the 70s and the early 80s are the same as it is today, even though the performances are unbelievable and the personalities are still powerful. Yeah, it was really interesting, the sense of the nationalism, for all the countries. You brought up a good point. There were only like how many stations then? 3 or 4 stations. Right. And now we have so many. I think, our attentions are diverted in so many different directions. So you don't even focus on the Olympics as much anymore. And the sense of pride, I mean, even like I was watching the opening ceremonies, on Friday last week, and everyone just kind of wandering around aimlessly with their phones, just no sense of decorum. And the ones we watched in 76 and 64, I mean, it was almost military. Right. Which is not good either. Maybe there's a happy in between, but it's like we've sort of lost the grace of it all. Well, there is some of that, certainly, but what it does is that we see this in all areas of sports. There are National Football League fans now who say they don't want to watch because the players are taking a knee, or in Europe, in soccer now we see that too, and soccer fans in Europe, England booed their national team at some points, and then other people rallied around them, and then the behavior that was shown towards the black athletes on the English national soccer team who missed penalty kicks proved everything about the fact that they still should be doing the protests. But when it does boil down to the sport itself, it still is amazing. The dedication and, the perseverance that these people put into, especially at the Olympics, what is usually a once-in-a-lifetime type of thing. Now, sometimes you'll be able to do 2 Olympics, and there are a handful of unbelievable athletes who can do more. But most of the time, this is your peak. This is your one opportunity. That's incredible pressure, but it's also captivating to watch. Yeah, I feel for them because, in opera, you have a number of years where you can be healthy and live out your career. Whereas, especially these gymnasts, this is it. This is when they know their bodies are going to be at their best. I can't imagine it, but I noticed the focus, as I've told you before, gymnasts, especially in archery, oddly enough, the focus is so similar to that of opera, and how you have to really, they're always thinking through their line, and that opera singers are always thinking through their line, and it doesn't go unnoticed by me. Well, and there's a certain aspect of perfection in that, absolutely. And just missing out on perfection over the last few months has been our golfer, Louis, and Louis Oosthuizen, who has easily completed the career Grand Slam of runner-up finishes. He now has 6 runner-up finishes in major championships, including the last 3. And it's just rooting for a golfer. I wrote a blog about this. I've talked about a podcast. Rooting for a golfer is really one of the most frustrating things, because if you root for a team and they're good, they win 2/3 of their games or 3/4 of their games. You root for a golfer, even the best golfer has like a 10%. I think Phil Mickelson has a 7% winning percentage, and he's one of the most winningest golfers in the history of the game. So even if you root for somebody as prolific and winning as Phil, you get rewarded on a semi-regular basis all the way up to his age of 51, where he won a major championship. And Louis just hasn't been quite way to get across the finish line. You really have drawn. I always liked Louis, and I don't know whether it was a chicken or the egg, but we've become Louis fans together, and he always pops up at the biggest tournaments, and that's usually when you watch. And so you've gotten, I think you follow Louis on Instagram now, I believe.
Yes, oh yes.
And
I'm a
there
Louis
was
fan.
a thing right after the PGA Championship where he was lip syncing karaoke.
Rise up.
And he was apparently, I just read an article about it right before I did this. He was doing it really to just get his kids to behave because they wouldn't sit still on the plane.
He likes to lip sync to Beyonce.
So anyway, that seemed to be a side of Louis we didn't know. But I think that we saw this last week as he finished second again in a regular tournament, the 3M Championship in Minnesota, when he finished up and he almost holed out in the last hole. He's really becoming a popular figure. People feel for him because he can't quite get across the finish line. But when I watch the tournaments with Louis, now the mounting frustration is coming out with you, and you're almost getting mad at Louis.
Well, I wasn't. So I was, because it's like, here's why should I be this way? Because I know how hard it is. I guess I see in him, he seems like on that last day, that there's a fear that gets in his. I don't know if it's fear or exhaustion, because he's usually leading for 3 days in a row. And then suddenly the last day comes and he's just peaked too soon. And I keep wanting him to rethink his game plan, screw up the first day and then, start energizing yourself the last. But who am I as a golfer? I would never understand. I mean, I like to golf, but I would never understand what it's like for that kind of pressure. But what I like about him is even when he doesn't win it, he still is there. He's not defeated. He is not defeated. And so there's something about, winning. You can be a winner without always placing first.
Yeah, and also I think the part of the appeal is obviously his name. I mean, if he was Charles Oosthuizen, I don't think that he would be as popular. People, it's an easy chant. They love to say Louis, Louis. And so hopefully... I don't agree. I think he's a down-to-earth person. That's why I've liked him all these years. He's got that little gap tooth, and I always like the South African accent. Right.
I just think he's got an endearing quality.
I'm not saying it's the only reason. I think it helps. The name certainly helps.
Yeah, that's true.
So go, Louis. Let's get one soon, and we may even toast if Louis finally gets across the finish line and wins one. And we've got something, not a finish line of sorts, but for a variety of reasons. You've been through this in your lives. The travel has not been as big a part of our lives as we enjoy. And we are headed out in the near future, not the not-so-near future, but relatively near, on another driving trip. I did a trip that is similar to this one, which is the subject of my book, Leaving Cancer for the Circus. And then part of the story there is that I did not tell my lovely spouse that I was leaving, but then 2 years later, we did the trip somewhat like ourselves, the two of us. That was very well spoken.
Can you speak today?
Exactly.
Thank you.
And we did it together. And with Jane making the decisions on a daily basis. And this time around, because of the circumstances of the day, this trip is going to be far more planned in advance. I mean, you just can't up and abruptly, impromptu book hotels and campsites and things like that, or you'd be stuck with massive bills. So many people are doing this type of thing now. But it's something we're very much looking forward to, and it's going to be a real cathartic type of thing. I think a little bit longer than we've done in the past. And, I've said it on this podcast a million times. You're always a wonderful companion, but you're my best companion when we travel. And I know that you've done the planning on this, so I know it will be well done. And it's very exciting. It's a very exciting thing to look forward to. We're going to Wyoming and such, to the Black Hills.
We're doing, usually we're flying out to Europe, which is our MO, and what most people's MO is in the United States. And we don't always appreciate what's in our backyard, but everybody else is doing that now. So we'll see how busy it's going to be where we go. But we're going to be at Custer National Park. We're going to be at one with the bison yet again and go through the Bighorn National Forest, East Wyoming, on our way to Yellowstone and Jackson Hole. And we're going to take some private tours and just really, really get involved with nature. And then our final destination is Livingston, Montana. And if you know anything about that, that's where Tom Brokaw had his ranch. And a lot of stars wander over there. It's a pristine old Western town but it's surrounded by mountains and all these beautiful scenery, but a warm and inviting place. Friends of ours have suggested we wander that direction, and then we go back through Medicine Bow, where we might see some little snow caps again.
Yeah, it's a beautiful drive. Wyoming is a very, very interesting place because it's sort of this operatic crescendo of beautiful spots, and then you can relax for 5 or 6 hours of flatlands, high plains type of driving. You can always see the mountains, but you're not always driving through them. It's beautiful. I'm looking forward to it, and it really should be fantastic. And it's going to be mostly fantastic because it's going to be with you.
Yes, and the prairie dogs.
Looking forward to the prairie dogs again. The smallest of creatures and among the largest of creatures in bison somehow.
I forget the symbiotic relationship, but I don't think it's a very pretty one.
No, I don't think it is either, but somehow they have a relationship, and we'll see them both again at Custer State Park as we revisit a trip that we did in 2017. It's a great way to get away from the virus that we hope continues to go away, although it seems to be a part of our lives still, but always a real release to travel with you, dear.
And you as well, my dear.
We hope you enjoyed the latest Danny Klingscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Come back soon for something fresh and new. This podcast was made possible by our great sponsors like
Cinematic Visions, an affordable and award-winning solution for professional media production since 2003.